Hello and welcome to Inspired Caregiver. My name is Michelle. I created this podcast because I was the primary family caregiver for both of my grandmothers for a collective 7 years, which meant I handled everything from car keys to managing their households, dealing with all this stuff, and then ultimately end-of-life care. And I've worked in senior living as a result of that experience for over 7 years. So this podcast is designed to share with you insights, tips, tricks, and inspiration through those experiences, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Inspired Caregiver. Welcome back to Inspired Caregiver. This is Michelle, and I have been sharing my journey with alcohol and drinking. And this is part 3 of this 3-part series. Part 1 was why I stopped drinking. Part 2 was how I stopped drinking. And then this is part 3, what has changed in my life. And I have spent an extraordinary amount of time preparing for this episode, and I keep adding to it. And I thought this is going to be a 2-hour podcast, so I better just get to it and start recording. But before I go into what has changed in my life, I wanted to tie in why I'm sharing this information with you. More and more, I've just been hearing a lot of people talking about their drinking habits that have formed over the last year and a half during the pandemic. And I've not heard one person say how happy and excited they are about it. I feel like people are judging themselves and really hard on themselves and frustrated and not sure what to do next. So obviously the stress that people have been under is almost tangible. It's just been so stressful. And I feel like for caregivers and healthcare workers, it has been exponential. So when you're helping a family member out as a caregiver and your resources are systematically eliminating as the world shuts down, the coping mechanisms were challenged and a lot of people kicked up their drinking. So I'm hoping that sharing my experience with you will help you feel like it's possible to manage your stress without alcohol, if that is what you're choosing to do. So surprisingly to me, actually, recording this podcast gave me a chance to sit down and really think, what has changed in my life since I stopped drinking? It's a question that I've always asked other people when I heard that they had stopped drinking. I usually started with, well, how'd you do it? And then what's changed? So I thought it was a worthwhile question to answer for you. And admittedly, thinking about what has changed pushed my thoughts further back to where I came from. And I think this is going to be the hardest of the 3 to record. The other 2 felt like I was just providing information, kind of like reporting the news. And this one I feel like it exposes me a little bit more. But you're worth it, and I'm willing to share it. So one of the realizations I had is that everything shitty that has happened in my life and to my body has happened while I was sober. And that was kind of an aha for me. And I don't think I had realized that until this reflection. But in preparing for this podcast, I ended up typing like 10 pages just poured out of me. And I'm not sure where that will end up, but it seems notable that my partying was probably a subconscious, socially acceptable buffering tactic to avoid really dealing with my stuff. Despite years and years of therapy, I just always felt this slight undercurrent of sadness, pain, and fear. So I think that is a little bit of where I was coming from with my drinking. I definitely had this sense of, this is my one life and I'm going to live it up. Let's party. But then I felt like I was spending more time frustrated with my drinking habit than actually enjoying the time I was drinking. So more time kicking myself in the tush after. So what has changed? Because my place of work is the same. I live in the same house, still married to the same great guy. My kids are awesome. Nothing's really changed with them. They're a little bit older. We added a second dog to the family. She's adorable. But circumstantially, nothing has really changed, but so much has changed. So starting really easy, time. When we go out of town or get together with people or have people over, I have eliminated any thoughts or effort around what to drink. So I'm not trying to figure out anything or run to the store or organizing everything. All of that is gone. So that has freed up significant amounts of time. And once you hear this, I think your reticular activating device is going to kick in and you'll notice how much time you spend on it too. So in addition to gaining back that time, I spend zero time, feeling crappy about drinking or trying to recover from the night before. So every morning when I wake up, I feel great. I feel great. There's zero recovery time. So I have gained hours and hours of my time to bike ride with my son, walk my dogs, have clear-headed conversations with my husband, to learn things, read books, to create, give back to my community. So I have gained a tremendous amount of time. Okay, next thing. A byproduct of my not drinking is that my weight changed. Now, in the past, when I would intentionally want to lose weight and try to lose weight, I always cut alcohol out because there was just such a direct correlation in my mind to those two things that, well, wine, calories, my weight. But what I also realized is that I am a huge snacker. So when I drank, I was like continually wanting to eat crackers and cheese and dips. So eliminating drinking not only eliminated like the hundreds, literally hundreds of calories and alcohol, but also the food that I would consume. And typically, generally after 7 p.m. So what's I guess notable again is that the weight, I wasn't paying attention to it. I was like so focused on not drinking. My weight wasn't the focus. It was not drinking that was the focus. So this felt like a byproduct of this new effort. And it was about 6 months after I stopped drinking that I realized what was happening. And eventually, after almost a year, I ended up dropping 10 pounds and I've not had any issues with keeping it off. Without drinking, I became much more mindful and intentional about what I was eating. I was just paying attention a lot more. So because of that, I found that I was eating less at other times of the day as well. Like I just didn't require as much food and I wasn't making as many bad choices. I really think that this was just a testament to a lifestyle change that is maintainable. I'm also able to manage the sensations of hunger better. I think before, when I was drinking, anytime I felt hungry, I felt ravenous and kind of manic to figure out what I could eat or snack on. And I don't feel that way anymore. Biologically, I think my blood sugars must have evened out. I'm not sciencey, but I know that when I quit, my body just was not processing alcohol the way it had used to. Like I used to recover so much faster. And so I don't know why that is. Potentially hormonal changes, my age, I don't know. But the next day, when that time frame around when I made that decision to stop drinking, I would just feel so shaky, foggy, and flat, like almost vibrating. I can't quite describe it, but I would struggle to navigate my day. And obviously there were times when I had to sleep late or take a long nap because my body just wasn't recovering. It wasn't functioning. So, I would get hangry. I think I mentioned that. I would get hangry, and all of that kind of eliminated when I stopped drinking. Also, I was prone to night terrors, and I have another episode where I talk about this, because I've had some pretty embarrassing incidences with that. But without drinking, my night terrors have almost eliminated, because I realized my triggers for those were heat, like overheating, sugar, and alcohol. So obviously eliminating drinking, I almost never have them anymore. Okay, so we're gonna get a little heavier here. Some things that shifted and changed when I stopped drinking. Our friendships have definitely changed a little bit. Um, it was like shaking a sifter on my relationships. Like, you put everybody I know in that sifter and you start shaking it, and not everybody stuck around. Like, people were dripping through left and right. Some of them came back, but not all of them. And I had to be willing to let them go in order to be my best self. Obviously, a lot of my social activity was centered around drinking. So if they were doing that too, and they didn't want to stop, and I was, it just shifted the dynamic of our friendship. So not everybody wanted to hang out for that. And one of the things I think I realized from when I watched other people stop drinking, but I was still drinking, was like every time one of them would make the change, I would go back to questioning my own habits. And it felt really uncomfortable. I didn't like it. I did not like feeling that they were onto something and I should be doing it. And clearly they were succeeding at it, but I wasn't really ready to give it up. So at first it was hard not to take that personally, when people would stop hanging out with me. But I heard a quote once say, someone said that when they made changes in their life, they realized that they weren't leaving people behind. Those people just chose not to come with them. And that really made sense to me and made me feel better about it. So, my friends who did stick around and wanted to be supportive, they weren't sure how to navigate inviting me to things if there was going to be drinking, which was like always, ha ha ha, because that was just a lot of what we did to relax and unwind. So they weren't sure how to engage with me. But I was really determined to follow my own path. And so I had no issues being around other people when they were drinking. And I still don't. I have no problem with that. So I had to get comfortable with other people being uncomfortable. And I had to hold space for them while they wiggled through some of their discomfort and just reassure them that I was okay, but I still wasn't going to drink. And it's okay. And let's hang out and let's have fun. The most important relationship to me, of course, was the one with my husband. For several months, we kind of didn't know what to do with ourselves. We didn't really know how to interact because our whole social life, all of our relaxation habits were circled around drinking. I mean, not always to excess, but preparing dinner on Sunday night, or going to listen to live music, or going to a baseball game, or walking with the kids or around the neighborhood as they trick or treated, carrying a beer, which totally happens. All of our activities as a couple had the potential to involve a drink. And not drinking was my thing, not my husband's. And he genuinely supported me in my effort and wanted to make sure I was comfortable if he still had a beer here or there. And I 100% was. I really just felt like this was my thing. And he patiently stuck it out with me, and things did shift a little bit in our marriage. I'm not saying in a bad way, but there was definitely a shift, and we started doing all those things again, just without the beer or glass of wine. So the biggest change initially was we didn't go to as many happy hours, and we still don't do that as much. But when we do decide to step out, I drink ginger beer with lime. I have other substitutions that I drank quite a bit of were cranberry soda with lime, or at home I would drink like a half a kombucha because a friend of mine had suggested that. So that worked out for me. But what was interesting was after a few months of feeling like I needed those substitutes to be sure I had something in my hand, I don't need it anymore. I don't care. So that did shift for me. So the biggest, most dramatic thing I think that has changed in my life is I'm way better able to manage my mind and my emotions. So, first of all, I don't even think about drinking anymore. Like, I used to think when to drink, where to drink, who to drink with, what to drink, how much to drink, when to change from wine to beer that night, when to stop drinking for the evening, and then kicking myself in the butt after I drank, wondering what I did or said when I drank, wondering if I had a problem with drinking or if my habits were normal, wondering if I should stop drinking, and then negotiating with God about drinking and not drinking. So, like, there was just constantly this stream of thoughts around this for me and my brain was just so full of them. So on the days that I didn't drink, which was probably 3 to 4 days a week, I did not drink. I didn't think too much about it, but then on days when I did drink, there was just a lot of thoughts. And then on the days I wasn't drinking, I was still kind of thinking about it, really, because I would be thinking about the upcoming weekend. My internal dialogue was pretty brutal. Our mind is always listening to what we are saying to ourselves. Our brain is always listening to what we are saying to ourselves. So I was not kind to myself. And especially on days when I'd find that I had had a little too much the night before and I just wasn't feeling well, I just was unkind to myself. So not drinking, I've like eliminated all of that negative self-talk, which had a huge direct impact in my life. That was a big change, positive change. What was really interesting also was that I had to come up with other things to think about because I wasn't thinking about drinking all the time. So, about 10 months after I stopped drinking, God gave me Inspired Senior. Now, this podcast is the spinoff, Inspired Caregiver, but this is my company that supports family caregivers through this podcast and is helping shift how we're thinking and feeling about aging. And I do that with coaching and workshops. So my mind had all this space to think about this stuff. And so this was a significant change that I started to create and develop other things that had never been on my radar. And once my mind picked up on this concept, I've just been running with it ever since. So almost daily, I'm getting new ideas. And it's pretty exciting. So as I mentioned, also my emotions leveled out. And I would say this has been the other most significant change for me. I'm human. Life is 50-50. I still feel big ranges of emotions, but my ability to not get upset about something or to recover from something upsetting has just been way easier. And interestingly, I don't get as angry or afraid anymore. Like my anxiety, I feel like, I don't want to say it feels pretty gone. I'm just not as anxious as I used to be or worried as I used to be. My husband used to travel all the time, so there were nights to fall asleep at night, like I would have to have a glass or two of wine to just knock the edge off because I was so afraid. Even during the pandemic, when I felt afraid to go to work in the nursing home that I work in, and there was so much uncertainty and there was so much fear, I did not have any urges to drink. Like that just didn't even cross my mind. And of course, the irony is that I used to drink because I felt like it was helping me manage my emotions, but the reality was I was just avoiding them, and then they would kind of come back worse. And we are designed as humans to feel all the feels. And so numbing them out does not make them go away. So being able to manage our minds around them can really make it significantly less swing for you. You learn more about being neutral, which is such a great thing. Okay, something else that has changed in my life since I stopped drinking, my people-pleasing tendencies have significantly subsided. Thank God. God, I was so annoying. I'm so sorry. I think this is a result. I know this is a result from working with my coach, not drinking, and then age is such a gift, aging. But my desire to be liked and accepted and fit in was just so incredibly strong before. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I wanted everyone to feel comfortable at all costs, even at my own. And it was one of the things I realized that was one of the reasons that I drank. Because, like, if I got to a party a little bit later and you were super drunk, I would feel bad for you, and so then I'd be like, "Oh, you gotta catch up, gotta catch up." I know, it totally doesn't make sense, but at the time in my mind, it made sense. So, yeah, the people-pleasing tendencies have definitely subsided. So something else that has changed is my memory has improved. I have traveled to so many beautiful places. I've seen a lot of amazing things, met some incredible people, and I just don't feel like I can remember a lot of things. And that's because oftentimes I had a glass of wine in my hands. Like, I don't even remember the city that I traveled to in Mexico with my husband when we went to this all inclusive resort after we lost a baby. Like, I don't remember that. I don't remember the area in Arlington where we went to the restaurant after burying my grandma next to my granddad in Arlington. So yeah, I struggled to remember a lot of things, and I feel like without drinking, that has drastically improved. I'm just a firm believer in when you know better, you do better, and setting ourselves up for success. And obviously, dementia freaks me out. It's a scary thing, having worked in assisted living memory care, and my mother-in-law has dementia. I just want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can in my power to preserve my brain. Um, and I really want to completely soak up my life. I want to be present. I want to be in the moment as often as possible and build memories that I can enjoy and preserve well into my senior years. So, managing my mind and emotions, I would say, was the most significant thing. And again, the irony is that I used to drink to, I thought, help manage that stuff. But once I eliminated it, things just evened out for me so dramatically. Finances, people talk about like, oh, when your kid gets out of diapers, you're going to feel like you won the lottery, especially if you've got back-to-back kids in diapers for years. Well, I totally did not feel that way then, and I do not feel like that since I stopped drinking. Obviously, if I'm spending $12 a week for a couple bottles of wine, so like $24 a week, or you go out for dinner and then the 2 glasses of wine that I would drink would be, $10 to $15. There is a financial gain there. I haven't felt it quite as much, but definitely that could be something that changes in your life. So I really intentionally wanted to completely shift my relationship with alcohol, and my God, I did it. And if I did it, you totally can do it. And I really have no problem being around people that are drinking. I don't miss it. I don't want it. I have no desire for it. So that was a big change. I don't desire it at all. It goes back to that liver and onion sandwich I talked about in the last episode. There have been no negative changes for me in my life as a result of this decision. And I just encourage you to think about what you want the next chapter, time period, years of your life to look like, and think about what you need to do to get on that path. You need to have a compelling why. My whys for stopping drinking were compelling enough for me to bring me back to it every time in the beginning when I felt like it was a struggle. And you'll really need to know why you're doing it, to help you get through. So that is the end of this 3-part series. I really hope this was helpful for you. As always, you are welcome to message me with any thoughts or questions that you have. This was just my journey as caregivers of older family members and kids. It just, for me, was really important to think about how I want to show up for them and feel in my life. And this was such a blessing. It truly was a blessing. So that's it. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you want to continue the conversation, I am open to doing that. You are amazing. You are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. And I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.